Hey, what's up, everybody? I would like to do my Video Lee Patreon shout out. If you would like to donate to my Patreon, I just got finished recording this video. It was about 20 minutes long, so if you would like to donate to my Patreon, every dollar goes back into the channel. You could donate in the description below. My Patreon link will be there. I currently have 5 patrons. I love you all to death. I love everybody to death. Thank you guys. Excuse me. If you do donate, I appreciate it. If not, that's okay. Thank you guys for clicking on this video, and I hope you enjoy it. Future Nos is out. Adios. What's up, everybody? I hope you guys are enjoying watching the playoffs. Regardless of the fact that we aren't in it, it is actually a really entertaining set of playoffs this year that I'm happy to be able to watch. The Ravens being the more concerning one and done team than us. They got upset by the Titans in a blowout. One and done, absolutely crazy. All of the attention from the New Orleans Saints loss to the Minnesota Vikings eviscerated as soon as the Ravens lost that game to the Tennessee Titans. So congratulations to Ryan Tannehill and all of them. I think it's a very interesting playoffs. I don't know how you guys feel about it, if you guys are even watching it. A lot of our fans are boycotting it for some reason. I don't really get it. I understand taking time off of football to heal, but boycotting it as if the NFL did anything wrong is a little bit childish. So if you're doing that, don't do that. But today we're going to be talking about free agency. Now, it is the offseason for the New Orleans Saints, so of course that means some changes are going to be coming. And changes all start with free agency. Once a player's contract ends, it's either you re-sign him or you let him go. So that's what we're going to be talking about today in this video. I will not be going over specific contracts, contract hits. I won't be going over the numbers. I'll specifically be telling you who I think should stay and who should go. It's going to be a little bit of that kind of video. If you watch my video from last year, it's very similar to that. But there are some big free agents this year. I left some of the ones that are definitely not going to stay, that aren't even a question, off of this list. So if you don't see anyone from the original free agency list, that is why. So let's go ahead and start this video off by talking about the biggest free agent that will always be the biggest free agent, and that is Drew Brees. The soon-to-be 41-year-old quarterback is slated to be one of the hottest quarterbacks on the market this offseason. Of course, anytime Drew Brees falls on the open market, he's the hottest quarterback out there. So there have been a lot of questions swirling whether he will make his return as a New Orleans Saint this year. Media broadcasting teams have actually contacted Drew trying to get him on their team. Sean Payton was asked a question about that by the media just the other day, where he responded that he expects Drew Brees to be on the Saints field next year, not working as a broadcast crew member. So that's definitely reassuring. Sean Payton said he's going to be talking to Drew Brees about a contract deal as soon as this Monday. So definitely keep your Twitter notifications on. Be on alert, because Drew Brees does have a chance of getting re-signed very soon. So, as we know, Drew Brees' end was not the greatest this playoffs. He did have a bad game. You know, it was the offensive line, too. The entirety of the team didn't play too well. So, it isn't just Brees' fault. But when you look at his stats, he actually had a very, very, very good year. He almost broke his own single-season completion percentage record, but fell short by just a little bit. So, Drew Brees completed 74.3% of his passes this year, threw 2,979 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions with a 116.3 QBR while missing 5 games. So those are definitely impressive stats. I think Drew Brees stays for sure. Sean Payton will work diligently to get his deal done. There is no way that Drew Brees does not get re-signed this offseason. Hopefully we get him some more weapons, delve into the draft, and possibly drop the wide receiver. But yeah, Drew Brees will be a New Orleans Saint this offseason. Don't freak out. The next free agent we have to discuss is actually another free agent quarterback. That is 28-year-old quarterback Teddy Bridgewater, who took the Saints on a glorious 5-0 run. He didn't technically go 6-0 because we lost to the Rams, blah, blah, blah. He threw for 1,384 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions in that stretch with a 99.1 QBR, which is actually very good for somebody like Teddy Bridgewater, who just a couple of years ago was facing a extremely gruesome, what looked to be a leg-losing injury. So him coming back into the league and doing something like that and improving his worth was definitely a big thing, not just for his play and for this, the comfort of the Saints and having a backup quarterback like that, but this also really boosted the market for Teddy Bridgewater. There are teams like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Chicago Bears. There are so many teams around the league that will be searching for a quarterback next year. Teddy Bridgewater fits that bill, and I don't think the Saints are going to re-sign him. In my opinion, it's just not smart to re-sign 3 quarterbacks, and when you have Taysom, who's not going to be riding on the bench all year, but can line up as a receiver, line up as a running back, line up as a tight end, do so many things, and Teddy Bridgewater would just be sitting on the bench, it's a waste of his career. Letting Teddy Bridgewater walk and take a starting job somewhere in the league will definitely be beneficial for not only the New Orleans Saints, but for Teddy Bridgewater as well, because he deserves to have his own team. He doesn't need to be in Drew Brees' shadow any longer. I do believe the New Orleans Saints do let Teddy Bridgewater go regardless of his fantastic season. The next player I would like to talk about is A.J. Klein, who is a starting linebacker for the New Orleans Saints at 29 years old. I do think we re-sign A.J. Klein, but I don't think it's for a lot of money. A.J. Klein did not have the greatest season this year. He had 49 solo tackles, 9 assisted tackles, an interception, which was a pick 6 against his former team, the Carolina Panthers, a forced fumble, and a 48.4 below average Pro Football Focus grade. Seeing this dude in coverage was the only thing that really bothered me about him all year. He was getting burnt and burnt and burnt and burnt and burnt. But regardless, even if he's not a starting linebacker next year, which I believe he will be, he's definitely a way better depth piece and some really good insurance to have if someone does come and take his spot. So I definitely do believe we signed A.J. Klein, but not for a lot of money. The next player I have is a very controversial one. A very controversial one that a lot of people don't really enjoy me talking about because I seem to be a fan of this dude, even though I shouldn't be. He's blown every chance he has at my respect, but I'm going to keep pushing. This dude is going to still be one of the cornerstones of our defenses, and that is Eli Apple. Personally, I do believe, not only because I like him, but because of how good of an insurance policy he is, that we will re-sign Eli Apple. The corner core is a little bit blurry, to say the least, for next season. We have players like Marshawn Lattimore. We got to re-sign Eli Apple or P.J. Williams or both. You have Janoris Jenkins, Patrick Robinson. You have so many missing and pieces that can just fill in certain spaces. And you have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson who can play nickel. So it's a little bit confusing. Eli Apple is more of a boundaries corner. He can't really play inside too well. So having a backup corner that specializes in the boundary, if Janoris Jenkins does stay and does take that starting role, Eli Apple will definitely be a great insurance policy. I do think we re-sign him. He may actually compete for a starting job. Other than when he fell off this year, he had a great 2 seasons for the New Orleans Saints. A lot of people are just really quick to see the bad in what certain players do and just banish them to hell without giving them a second chance. So I do believe Eli Apple gets re-signed, and I think he makes a difference. The next player we have is Ted Ginn Jr., wide receiver, 35 years old. We're not re-signing Ted Ginn. I don't think so. It would have to be for a veteran's minimum. That's it. Our receiving core is obviously very thin, but Ted Ginn Jr. is not the answer. He had a very solid year in 2017, putting up 787 yards and 4 touchdowns with an average of 3.9 yards per catch, which is actually really low. But he was close to pushing 1,000 yards. And then in 2018, he took a significant decline, not only because of injury, but because of lack of performance. 209 yards, 2 touchdowns on the year with 17 receptions. This year, he had 30 receptions for 421 yards and 2 touchdowns. To me, he's fast, but Drew Brees doesn't really need many receivers that can go down the field anymore. Drew Brees' arm, as much as I hate to say it, is deteriorating. He's 41 years old. He's getting older. He's not that gung-ho, take a shot down the field type of quarterback anymore. He's someone that can throw quick and efficient passes and steadily move the ball down the field. It's what he specializes in. Ted Ginn Jr. doesn't really have a place on this team. He doesn't really fit this offense. And if we want to fix our receiving problem, it starts here. We let Ted Ginn Jr. go. I don't think he's coming back. The next player I would like to talk about is Andrus Peat. A lot of people have a problem with Andrus Peat. He's not the greatest in my opinion. He allowed 3 sacks this season, had 3 penalties, but played 575 offensive snaps. So when you play 575 offensive snaps and only 3 sacks were allowed by you, that's good, especially considering that a couple of weeks prior, Andrus Peat was playing with, or broke his forearm during a game. I don't think it's right to give up all hope on Andrus Peat. If we can get a good deal on him, I definitely would advise re-signing him. Offensive line depth is definitely important. That's what helped us so much in 2018, having players that can come in and perform even though someone's hurt, like Teron Armstead. He goes out a lot. So having players that can step in and perform will definitely help. Andrus Peat, I do believe he gets signed before a little amount of money. Now, the next player I have, I don't think we're going to re-sign, and that is corner P.J. Williams. P.J. Williams, time and time again, has just shown his extreme fondness for inconsistent play. He is a great corner at times, but other times he's absolute garbage. It's really hard to doze out what P.J. Williams is, what P.J. Williams can be, but for the most part, he's just downright average. I don't think the New Orleans Saints re-sign P.J. Williams, especially if we bring Eli Apple back. You can't sit here and tell me that P.J. Williams is more of a liable piece to bring into the system, back into the system, than Eli Apple, especially when you have someone like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson who can take over the nickelback situation and pioneer it better than P.J. Williams, and P.J. Williams can't play the boundary, so if something happens there, we're screwed. Having Eli Apple, who's more versatile and definitely a better player in my opinion, is more important than bringing back P.J. Williams. He pissed me off allowing that touchdown on the last play of the game, even though there was nothing he could do. He got pushed off. I don't think P.J. Williams' career as a New Orleans Saint continues, but I do think he finds a job elsewhere. The next player we have is Zach Line. I'm going to cut it here because I'm not going to make this video 40 minutes long. I do believe we re-sign him. The next player we have is Vonn Bell. Vonn Bell had an absolute amazing season. Like, he played off the charts. It's like almost every 3 seconds he was recovering a fumble. He got his first interception of the year this year. He played a fantastic season at that strong safety slot. He did miss a couple games towards the end of the season, so his stats aren't exactly what they could be, but he still had a fantastic year. I think Vonn Bell gets re-signed, and I think he gets re-signed for more money than almost everybody on the team but Drew Brees, because he's definitely an important piece to keep around this defense. He has the swagger, he has the talk, he has the nose for the ball, and the knack for scooping up turnovers. The next player I'd like to talk about is Patrick Omameh, a depth offensive lineman that actually played very well when his number was called. I believe we sign him for a very minimum amount of money. The next player we have to talk about is Manti Te'o, a linebacker we brought in when Kiko Alonso and A.J. Klein were both missing time. I do not think we re-sign Manti Te'o. The next player I would like to talk about is David Onyemata. This is someone who's earned a little bit more of a paycheck than most other people in this conversation. David Onyemata has been a very solid defensive lineman for the New Orleans Saints. He had 2 sacks this year on very limited snap counts. I think re-signing him or letting him go, we have a very crowded defensive line room. We have Malcolm Brown, Sheldon Rankins, so many defensive line pieces. I think this one's a toss-up. I would like us to re-sign him, but in all actuality, we are running low on money, and a defensive lineman, retaining one, isn't really that much of a need. David Onyemata has created a market for himself elsewhere and will get picked up by a team if we do let him go. So I see the New Orleans Saints letting go of David Onyemata. The next player we have is Noah Spence, a defensive end we picked up after Marcus Davenport got hurt. We're not re-signing him. The next player we have after that is Dwayne Washington. I don't think we re-sign him either. It's kind of ridiculous that this player, Dwayne Washington, has shown so many flashes but doesn't get any playing time. He knows what he's worth. Other teams have scouted him. I don't think the New Orleans Saints get away with hoarding him on their bench another year. The next player is safety DJ Swearinger. This is a very good question. We signed him when Von Bell and Marcus Williams were both out. It depends on how much money he wants. If we could strike a veterans minimum deal with DJ Swearinger, his presence will definitely be much needed against this young secondary group. So I think we do re-sign DJ Swearinger. It just depends on how low we can get him to go. Now, those are the unrestricted free agents. Let's move to the smaller group of free agents, which is the restricted free agents. Now, what a restricted free agent is teams can make you offers, but the New Orleans Saints will have an opportunity to match that offer anytime it is sent to a player. So if a player gets offered $4 million, the New Orleans Saints can match that offer sheet and retain possession of the player. The first one we have is long snapper Zach Wood. He likely gets re-signed. He has a very tight bond with the special teamers. Of course, he's just a long snapper, and that's not really the most important position, but having him is definitely going to be a plus because he's one of the best long snappers in the league, believe it or not. The next player, Justin Hardy, defensive back, who is more of a special teams ace. I do believe we do re-sign him. I don't think he's going to take a lot of money, maybe $2-3 million a year to be a very, very, very good special teamer. He is literally one of the best special teamsmen in the league. Re-sign Justin Hardy. It will be smart and it will pay off. Now, he hasn't been the greatest defensive back, but picking him up and adding him to the roster to play special teams per usual will definitely be great. Cameron Tom, no, I think it's time we part ways with Cameron Tom. He hasn't really got much play time, and when he does, he isn't that great. Next player, Krishawn Hogan. This is a good one. He's a restricted free agent. I don't think anyone really picks him up. We're going to get him for a little amount of money. I say we re-sign him. He didn't get any really statistics this year, but when you watch the game and look at the film, Krishawn Hogan is the best blocking wide receiver in the league. He's strong, he's long, he's tall. He's everything you'd want in a blocking wide receiver, and he adds a lot of oomph to the offense. He's like an extra offensive lineman. I do believe we re-sign him. Next is Austin Carr. God, no. God, please, no. Seeing Austin Carr on the field genuinely gives me dementia. I don't want him. The next player, Taysom Hill. And boy, do I have an interesting stat for you guys if you guys sat this long through the video. The thing with Taysom Hill is, of course, he can play really any position, but when you look at the position he plays, it's downright insane. So Taysom Hill, I'm going to read you two different stat lines, okay? They're both receiving stat lines, and I want you to tell me which one is which. So, one of these stat lines is for our number 3 wide receiver, and one of these stat lines is for our number 3 quarterback. So, I'm going to read them, and I want you to tell me who's who, and then laugh when you figure out what it is. So, the first player, 19 receptions on 22 targets for 234 yards and 6 touchdowns. The second player, 18 receptions, 234 yards as well, and 5 touchdowns. Now, they're very similar stats, but one is our backup quarterback, and one is our third wide receiver. The one with more touchdowns was Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill had the same amount of yards and a touchdown more in the receiving game than Traquan Smith. That is ridiculous. Taysom Hill is so much more than a quarterback. Of course, he wants to play the position of quarterback, but he's definitely more valuable than that. The Saints have to bring him back. The Saints have to bring him back. He's shown a lot of accuracy during the preseason. He also had 156 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown on the year. This dude is unstoppable. He can do anything. He's 30 years old, but he's in the prime, peak physical shape of his life. Re-sign him. Taysom Hill. If we don't re-sign this dude, and if we don't make him our starting quarterback once Drew leaves, we're going to be regretting it for years to come. Now we have to go to the exclusive rights free agents, which in this case, they cannot negotiate with any other team in the NFL. And when talked to by the New Orleans Saints, they will be offered a veterans minimum and have a take it or leave it option. That's it. So the first player I'd like to talk about is JT Gray. JT Gray is definitely someone we need to keep around. He's one of those special teams players that is literally extremely good. Like, he is one of those special teams players that you can count on. He's a Justin Hardy-esque player. I'm pretty sure he was second team All-Pro. Definitely speaks levels. Re-signed JT Gray. The next player I'd like to talk about is, drum roll, Keith Kirkwood. Keith Kirkwood is actually a exclusive rights free agent, which is actually really, really, really good. This dude showed a lot of promise. In 2018, Keith Kirkwood had 21 targets, 13 receptions for 209 yards and 2 touchdowns. A lot of people might think that's a sorry stat line, but he didn't really get figured out until the end of the regular season. He was getting passes thrown his way. He had a good game in the playoffs as well. He's 6'3". I was drafted in 2018 and is extremely young, someone we could possibly develop. I think I'd take him over Traquan Smith at this point. So Keith Kirkwood, someone we need to keep. And the last player, Lil Jordan Humphrey. We're going to keep all the wide receivers we can, so expect us to re-sign him. So what do you guys think the Saints are going to do free agent-wise this year? There are a lot of players we need to talk about, so go ahead and leave your comments down in the comment section below. I really appreciate you guys watching this video all the way through if you have. So yeah. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you boys in the next one.
Ballin' like Barkley, wrist so sparkly, internet surfing, feel like iCarly.